Welcome back. We are here. We are about to get listing working. So right at the end of the previous video, we quickly put together this list endpoint that's going to return sort of like a paginated list result right here that we created. We created a model, although it's not a database-driven model. It's something we can do in Serverpod. It's very helpful. Not everything has to be database-driven. We can create these classes, and it will generate all the stuff we need for it. So let's flip over to the client side. But before we do that, I want to remind you, please, this is a big project. Having a lot of fun with it, but it's a lot of work, and especially to try and keep it tight and not have me, pulling my hair out over things, to keep you guys not bored. So I would appreciate, yeah, subscribe, like, share the video somewhere, watch it, all that kind of stuff. And I have rolled out a membership program on YouTube very recently, and we have quite a few people there now, and it's fun. We have a Discord, able to help people sort of mentoring and one-on-one, a bunch of other cool perks and more to come, as well as this source code of what we're building now. Although it's eventually, I do plan to open source it. It is not open source right now, although if you are a member, it's one of the perks, and you'll get a read-only access to the GitHub repo. That way, if you're playing along, and it seems like quite a few people in my little membership in Discord are trying to build this something similar, following along. It's really helpful if you're stuck on something. Instead of replaying the video, you can just come and see the source code and be like, oh, that's what was done. So it's fun. It's $3.99 a month, nothing crazy, and hoping to get a lot of people there for the community, more than even for the monetary value. So with all that being said, let's get back into it. So yeah, we have this now, and now we can create a list. So let's create some things that will help us do this. First of all, let's create a provider, and we're going to call it venue list provider.dart. Now for this, I'm just going to recall how I want to do this. Yeah, we're going to use, of course, a Riverpod provider for this. So we're going to see if this will import Riverpod. Nope, it just did the snippet. So I do need to just import it. So let me grab Riverpod annotation, which is all we need to do this. So we can do Riverpod. Now I'm doing uppercase because I actually want this to be have the value of keep alive equals true. And I think the reason we're not getting really this complete is because this is supposed to be marking a class. So let's actually create a class. And we're going to call this venue list. We're not going to call this venue list provider. Actually, we can. I realized something very recently that we can do in Serverpod, which is kind of cool. We can actually keep the word provider here and make its name. Although, wait, is this telling me something weird? Classes. Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. We can actually name this something different. So here I'm going to, although it's supposed to be like this, we're going to just call it venue list here because this will automatically add the word provider for us. If we were to have it as provider here, we would be having to reference as venue list provider. So let's do it this way because I believe this will work. And in here, we need to have a build function. And our build is essentially just going to return something called, we're going to have something that basically is going to track like what's happening with our pagination requests. So we're actually going to create a class for this. And this will be a generic class, or actually just an enum even, that isn't actually specific to venues. It's something we can use on all of our list views. So that means we can put it in core. And I'm going to make a new folder here called models. Even though this isn't really a model, it kind of is. And we'll call it paging status.dart. So this will be an enum. And the different states for pagination, we're going to have something like completed. There might not be anything found. So let's have something called like no items found. We can have a loading first page, as well as a first page error. So something went wrong on the first page error. We can also have a subsequent page error. And there's a reason why I want to do these differently. Subsequent, that's probably not how you spell it. Subsequent page error, like that. And we'll also have just like, maybe I'll put it here, ongoing. I don't know if that's the right word for it. We also have to give this a name. Paging status, we'll call it. There we go. So completed will mean like we have all the data, like we've got to the very end. Ongoing means, we've got a page, everything's cool, but there might be more pages after, that kind of thing. We might, change this up, but this is essentially what we want our provider to return. So we'll import that now. In here, ultimately, we want to, when this first builds, we want to return paging status dot loading first page, because that's what's going to happen when this thing boots up. It's going to load our first page for us. Now, to do pagination, especially this is like for infinite scroll pagination, there's a library that I really like, and we're going to install it now. So we're going to do Flutter pub add, and I believe it's called just infinite scroll pagination, I believe. Let's try it. Looks like it worked. So now we have this cool pagination library, and what that allows us to do is essentially let that pagination class kind of take care of the state of our pages. And we can do that by creating a paging controller. So, or a pagination, is it pagination controller? No, paging controller. Paging controller. And what we have to do is say what is the value for the page. And in our case, it's going to be an integer. It's going to be either like 1, 2, 3, like what page we're on. And secondly, what is going to be stored in it? And in that case, it's going to be a venue. A list of venues, obviously, but each item itself will be a venue. And we'll just call this paging controller. And we want to instantiate here just by going new paging controller, and the first page key will be 1, meaning that's what, when we first request, we want to get page 1 in most cases. Okay, I guess this didn't import, or something is weird here. Maybe just because we haven't... Oh, paging stat. Oh, you know what? I realized we don't need this. This is actually something that comes with the paging status itself actually comes with our infinite scroll pagination. So let's actually get rid of that. My mistake. I just remember going into that class, and so I think we're doing okay. But that's why we started getting that error, because it was like, I found it here and found it there. So we're going to do that. But when we actually boot this up, we want to essentially take our paging controller and we want to add a page request listener here, which is basically anytime we request a new page, what are we going to do? So, okay, we'll do that. This will be the value of what page we're trying to get. And we're going to call a function called fetchPage, where we pass in that page. Now, this doesn't exist, so we can do a command dot, and we can go create a method called fetchPage. And we'll get to that in a bit. Secondly, we can go pagingcontroller.add a status listener. And here's our listener here and status. Now you'll see this status itself is, of course, our paging status. And we can just go state. Anytime that this changes, we'll just update our state to use that new status. And we are seeing some errors here, and that's just because we haven't run our generator yet, but we will very soon. And I think that's actually enough for us to run our generator. So let's run that. I'm going to now run it with watch, just so that when we do future things, it's going to be watching and it'll be a lot quicker. The first one's always slow. When you have the watch on, though, the second time you save, it's only going to do the stuff for the stuff that changed. I missed one very important part. We need to do our part of venue list provider.g.dart. So now we'll save, and hopefully this will get us all of our lovely things. And this did not seem to work. Maybe I was wrong about that. No, look, we have a file. Venue list provider doesn't conform to the bound of this. Okay, there's something we did wrong here. Maybe we do need to actually keep these names the same. Let's just try this and see if that solves it. Yeah, that was the problem. Okay, so ignore what I said about, I know in certain classes you can do that, but we're calling this venue list, not venue list provider, because we need, we don't want to have the word provider twice. Okay, cool. Override. So that's all good. We now have a provider. Now, how do we actually fetch a page? So when we fetch a page, we are going to allow a page to be passed in. Now, we might want to also optionally allow a limit to be passed in to like override. So we can use limit, and we can just do 10 as sort of our default, but allow it to kind of be overridden in various cases. So here now, what we want to do is actually go final result equals await, and here we'll do our ref.read. We have to make this asynchronous, meaning we should mark this with a future void. And for our provider, we're going to use our what is it? Venue service provider. And here we're going to do something like .list and pass that stuff through, but this does not exist yet. We need to make it. So let's go to our venue service, and we'll do here, and this will essentially be kind of similar to this, so we'll just do that. We're going to call it list, and we're going to get either a string back or we're going to get a venue list back, which is that auto-generated model that we made on the back end. Okay, so let's take a look at how this should work. We should allow not a venue to be passed in, but instead we're going to require a page. So let's do it that way. Required int page. We're also going to require an int of limit here. That's it actually for now. So we have our list, cool. And right here, all we really need to do is take our client dot, or we got to await it, but we're going to return an await of our client dot venue dot list. And here we're going to pass in, these kinds of things. Except we can't actually just return it like that. We have to call it result. So this will give us back the venue list. But we want to do a try around here, like usual. Catch E. We'll print the E. Print the E. In the case that something goes wrong, let's print E dot toString. Just we'll get that. We'll return the left of that. Otherwise, here what we will do is we will go and return right of the result. So if something goes wrong, cool, we just give this error message back. All right, so now we have this list endpoint, or list service, and it's requiring us to pass some things in. So here, what do? We want to pass page and page, and we want to pass limit and limit. And we should be good. We get our result right here. Now, getting the result, again, this could be an error, it could be whatever, so we will go result.fold, and when we have an error, we're going to do something. Otherwise, this will be, we'll just call this data, because it's not actually the venues, right? It's the venue list, which has a bunch of data in it. And what we can check is we can go if data dot, and how do I want to do this? We want to know if there are any more pages. I wonder if this is something, you know what, this might be something nice to put actually on right here. So let's actually do something called can load more. And this will be a Boolean. We'll save that. We will have to generate again. So let's actually just generate now. And we can put that logic here, can load more. And the logic for loading more is if page times limit is less than the count, we know there's going to be more. So we're just doing that server side. Oh, we have, I wonder what that was. See, maybe because I was in the middle of typing something when I tried to generate. There we go. We got our code generated. So now we should be able to do data.canLoadMore, which we're not actually getting back yet. I think it's just because of our, generating the code and not having this. So let's try and open up our OpenMic client, Serverpod client, one of these, venue list. That should be enough to trick this thing into giving us can load more. So in the case that it can load more, the way our pagination class works is we can go page controller, or is that what it's called? Paging controller, sorry, paging controller dot append page. And what we'll do is we'll take data dot results, and next page key, we take whatever the page is right now. We can get that from data dot page, and we can just add 1 to it. So that's like we're appending a page, and we're saying like when you need another page, like this is how you do it. In the case that we can't load more, we can actually go paging controller dot append last page and pass in the same thing. And what this will do is it will kind of get rid of the listener, at least until we refresh. It'll get rid of that listener looking for, we scroll to the bottom, give me more. That's essentially what that allows us to do. All right, wicked. So we have a list provider now, which is kind of cool. And I think that's all we need, although it might be nice to just have a void function here. And actually, we'll do it as a future void. And we'll call it refresh. And this will allow us just to essentially call this. So we can go paging controller.refresh, which is this an asynchronous? you know what? It's not actually. So we'll just run it this way. So this will just allow us to easily, from our UI, maybe it's because it's a pull down to refresh, or like a button we have, we can just refresh it. And just calling this actually will bootstrap everything, as empty and go through the whole life cycle. Okay, so now what we need is an actual list itself. So let's go here inside components, and we're gonna make a new file called venue list component.dart. And we'll just make this for now actually we'll use a stateless consumer. We'll call this venue list component. And we need to import some things. We need that, and we want to get material in, obviously. There we go. And here, what we're going to do is return an infinite. Is that what it's called? Or no, it's called, sorry, a paginated. Paginated. It's something like that. What do we actually return here? Oh, it's just called a paged list view. Okay, cool. So now we need access to our paging controller, and we can get that by going paging controller equals ref.read, and we can read our what is it? What do we call this thing? Venue list provider dot notifier dot paging controller. So that's just getting reference to this guy right here. We have this lovely thing here. That's fine. So that we pass that in, everything's cool. Now we have what's called a builder delegate. And right here, we actually want to return essentially what each row would look like. So let me just see. Builder delegate. Yeah, what is this telling us to? Hang on, let me just get rid of this and remember how this works. Builder delegate. This will be, I think, a function. Okay, so builder delegate is actually something called we use a page child delegate right here, page child builder delegate, and what we want is an item builder. Now this is the part that I was trying to figure out. We have context. What does the item builder have? Context. Item builder. Okay, then we have the item itself, which is going to be really called a venue. We can just call that venue. And the last is actually the index. So that's the function. Now you'll see that this is dynamic. It's saying object, but we can actually go like this and mark it as venue. I think right here is where we do it. And then you'll see it actually knows it's a venue in this case, which is great. So let's just clean this up a bit. And then in here is where we actually return something. So for now, let's just use our basic like list style as we normally would do. And we can do title, text. We can just use the venue.name. We'll wrap this in a card, and we should be good there. So now let's take our venue list component, and let's actually, in our view here, I'm going to just also comment out, this might be annoying, let's uncomment this again, and I'm going to take all this body, comment it out, and we'll do body again, and here we can just use our venue list component, like that. And let's refresh. And we'll go to our Explore, and we see this spinning thing, which is kind of interesting. So something's going wrong, and it's because we are not running our server right now. So we'll just do run our server. So it's kind of in this like, hey, nothing's happening. And let's just rebuild again and go to our Explore. And there, we have our venues coming back, a lovely list. So that's cool. Now, the thing is, though, this sort of logic here, we are going to probably be reusing a lot. And there's more that we're going to want to add. We're going to want to have stuff to build errors. We're going to have all this. So what I would like to do is essentially create like a generic list component that we're going to be able to make use of throughout our app. So let's do that. This is something that's going to go into core. new folder. We'll call it components, because we don't have any core components yet. And let's just make something called infinite list, because that's really what this is, component.dart. Awesome. So this we will just make a also a stateless consumer. Although actually it could be probably a stateless widget. Let's just start with that. We can always change it if we have to. So we'll call this infinite list component. And here, let's just open up both of these things side by side so we can kind of see what we want. So in this case, we are going to want to return a paged list view. But the paging controller is going to be dynamic. It's going to be something that gets passed in. So what we want to do is make a option to pass it in. So we'll call it paging controller, and it'll still, all of our pagination will be of type int, but we're going to have this generic variable called t, which we're going to actually put right here. Meaning whenever we actually create one of these, we want to say what type it will be, venue in our case, and it will now make this work properly. Paging controller, like that. And this will be a required field, required this dot paging controller. Cool. So we got kind of a start here. Now the next thing we want to pass in is actually the builder, because if you're going to want to build it, differently, and we can't really put that logic here. So we're actually going to use, it's going to ultimately return a widget, but it's going to be a function that it takes in the build context. It's going to take in t, so whatever the actual item is here, and we'll just call it item. And it's going to be an int of index right here, and we'll just call this item builder. And this is something we also are going to want to pass in. So now for our builder delegate, we'll still do it the same way as before. It was page child builder delegate, and we can mark it, instead of marking it with venue, we actually mark it now with t, because we're passing in this t here when we declare this. And in here, for our item builder, instead of actually building our item builder, we actually just going to forward the item builder being passed in, because we followed the same shape right there. All right, so that's enough at least to get us started, meaning now, instead of doing all this code here, what we can actually return here is our infinite list component, and pass in the paging controller, and then pass in our item builder, which really, we'll just grab this to make it the same, although we need all these things. So the first is context. The second is we'll call it venue, just for our purposes. We could call this anything. It could be called item. It doesn't really matter. And then index, which is something we may need at some point, to know if we're at the last one, or, if we want to do like coloring of odd and even. But there we go. So we can get rid of all this now. So that's just a little bit simpler now. We have an infinite list. We get our paging controller. We do want to mark this as one using venue, because then it knows what it is. Meaning now this, just by nature, it knows it's going to be a venue. Everything's good. Okay, cool. So we have that. Now something else we might want to do just in general is we can wrap this entire widget with a refresh indicator, and we can do something on refresh. And in here, we need to pass in another thing. So let's do a final, and this can be a void callback, because we don't need to pass any data back. Void callback. And we can call this handle refresh. And what we would do here is actually just pass in the handle refresh here, which it is saying void function, can't be assigned to future void function because it's future. So I guess maybe we'll just do future void function. There we go, I think. And then we'll want to make this something that's required, this dot handle refresh. So now we can actually call handle refresh here, and then over here to handle the refresh, we can actually go ref.read venue list provider.notifier refresh, like that. And this is now saying it's void. Yeah, this is why I think I wanted to make it async. Oh wait, yeah. How can we make this? How can I do this better? I mean, we could just do this. Let me just, maybe we'll just do it like this. There. That just makes it a little bit easier to work with. And in fact, now I think we can get rid of this. Yeah, and just pass reference. Now we do have a bit of duplication here. You'll see we have this ref.read, whatever. So I'm actually going to, first of all, make something just called provider. And that will be this right here, this whole notifier like this. That way we can just not have to do this twice. And just do provider.refresh. Okay, so now that we have that, in theory, we should be able to pull down and it'll do a nice little refresh there. It's quick. You can't really tell. We could, of course, mock it by putting like a delay, but Serverpod's really quick. Well, especially when my data, everything's running local. It's not really doing, it's doing a network request, but it's not really going anywhere. It's just looping back on the local host. What else might we want in here? Just while to make this a little bit better, we might want to have, yeah, no, I think this is fine for now. We'll add more stuff to it when we need it. But yeah, this is just now a handy way for all of our models. Anytime we want to list stuff, we can very easily just have it in this infinite list. Now, this is a little bit hard to see working until we have a bunch of data. But the way this package works is if we had, say, like 20 things and we scrolled down, it would then call the next page and you see this little loading indicator there. I can kind of fake this. Yeah, we can kind of fake this just to see it in action. Let's go to our venue service. And what we'll do anytime we're listing is we're also going to await a future.delayed of maybe like seconds 1. So we'll do that, and we'll set our limit. We'll just hard code it here to 1. Okay. And let's just see. This will also help us test our pagination. So when we go to here, we should see that 1 come in, and then the other one came in. If you didn't see that, let's actually make it a little bit longer. So basically, what's happening? I go here. It's loading the first page. Cool, the first one's gone, and this is a separate, little widget when it's trying to load the other one. Now, we definitely have some kind of issue here. That's weird. Why did we get the same one? We got my cool bar. Was that just a weird refresh issue? Limit 1 page. Are we not passing the page through properly? See, this is a good thing to debug right now. Okay, so we get the first one. Then we get, it is working. I think it's just something to do with when I saved and refreshed and stuff. It used like some old logic or something, because I don't think I'm doing anything wrong there. But I've been wrong before. Let's just test it one more time. 1, 2, and it knows it's the last page. I think we're good there. So let's get rid of this delay. Let's pass through limit again, and we should be fine. When we have a lot more venues, this will be even more fun to test. Okay, that's great. We now have listing. What should we do next? I think retrieving makes sense. So let's figure that out. So we're going to make another provider called venue detail provider.dart. Now for this, we're going to be using another type of, I don't think we've used this yet, another type of Serverpod provider called an async provider, I think is what it's called. And for this, we want to say what's going to be returned. And in this case, it is going to be a venue. So let's go this, and we're just going to call it venue detail. Let's get that imported now. And the first parameter of this will be our venue detail ref right there. And the second parameter is going to be an integer, and it's going to be the ID that we want to essentially be retrieving. So let's make this async. And here is where we'll do our logic to ultimately go out to our service and fetch it. So we'll need to add that code. But before we do that, let's actually just denote this with Serverpod, like so. Let's get our Serverpod annotation imported. I think I have an extension that makes it hard to import because it tries to also do things. And we need to, of course, do part of venue detail provider.g.dart. So we can save this, and we're going to get some errors because this isn't returning anything yet. So let's figure that out. Ultimately, in our venue service, we're going to have a retrieve. And similarly, this is going to, what's our closest one? None of these are that close. This one's close enough. We'll start with this. So we'll call this retrieve. And here we're going to instead pass in an int of the ID. And we will now, I'll just grab this to kind of have something to start with. And what we want to do now is get our result equals await client.venue.retrieve, which of course we don't have yet. So let's go back to our backend. And in our endpoints here, this will be kind of similar to this. So let's grab this and retrieve. Instead, we're just going to pass an ID up, int of ID. And what we want to do is actually take our venue model .db retrieve row, find first row. Oh, they already have one. Find by ID. Cool. Session ID. Great. We're going to do that. And this, yeah, this is right, because this will actually, if we hold down these two buttons here, what am I holding? Control and Alt, you actually kind of see, oh, actually you can't. So let's just do R, just so I can see what this actually is. It's, oh, yeah, we need to await it. So there we get that. It could be a venue, and that's ultimately what we want to return here. So let's save that. We got to run our generator because we've made a new function in here. So let's let that run. Let's get our server started so we don't make that mistake again. And here, hopefully, see, we don't have it yet, but if I click on, something like this, I should start to get the retrieve. Yeah, there it is. And there we pass in our ID. So here our result, it might be null. So we want to do something like if result equals null, we'll return a left. We can just say like venue not found, something like that. Otherwise, we'll return right of the result right there. And if something went wrong, we just return the error. Okay, so now we have a retrieve. We're going to go here, and what we want to ultimately return from here is we're going to go final result equals await, and we want to rate our ref.read and take our venue service provider .retrieve and just pass through that ID. And again, this we need to then fold on. So we'll go return result.fold. And right here we can do on left. So an error went wrong. We might have to do something, handle something a little bit differently. Let's just print that error. Error, sure. Whereas with right, we are going to return. Oh wait, right. We need to actually. This will be the venue, and we'll see that this, in theory, could be. Actually, no, it can't be null. Is that true? Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. So here we want to return venue. Now we do have this problem here where we need to return something from here, and we, in theory, want to return null. And we're going to actually mark this as something that can be null. There we have it. So here we have a venue detail provider. So let's go into our venue routes, and we're going to make a new path here. We're going to call it go route, and its route, we'll do that next. But basically, we want to essentially pass off to a detail screen. So that's state, and here we need to make that screen. So let's make it venue. We have screens. Let's just have venue detail screen .dart, and we can just make this a stateless widget for now. We'll just call it venue detail screen, and what we need passed into here is actually the ID, int ID of the venue. We're not going to pass in the venue itself because we want the screen on its own with the most basic information, basically information we can store in a URL, because we need to support web here and like deep linking. We want it to be able to solve the venue on its own just from the ID. So we'll make that a required field, this .id. And in here, let's just let's return a scaffold. Let's give it just an app bar, title, text. Actually, we only need a title, not yet. Body will be let's just do text hello for now. So this is what we want to essentially send back. So we're going to do venue detail screen. Now see, we have this thing called ID that's required. And where can we get that from? Well, we can get that from the state. So this is the go router state. And what we're going to actually do here is make this dynamic. What we'll take is the path we want to build based off of the namespace, first of all. So we can do something like, namespace, and then we can actually have something like ID, just like this. And that is all good. However, to pass this ID in, now we want to actually take the state.path parameters and look at that value. So it's going to be the same as whatever we called it here. You call this anything, but ID makes sense to me. And we want to pass that through. However, this is a string. Everything that's in here is going to be a string because it's a URL parameter. So we actually want to go int.tryParse. And we're going to basically try parse this. Actually, sorry, we're going to do, we'll do a try parse just to be safe. Now, try parse can technically be null. So in the case that it is null, we can just fall back to 0. And right here, this could also be a null string. So we kind of also have to do an empty, sort of thing here, or just like 0. But this will work just as fine. Just do an empty string. Obviously, nothing in our data will have an ID, so this will ultimately create a 404 error when someone comes to it, if they're just like typing in different random IDs. But we'd rather have that happen than the app crash when we just try and parse it with just int.parse, which will just throw a crash if it can't even parse an integer from there. So there's just like a safe way to do that. We're basically making sure this exists by falling back to empty string, and if the try parse fails, we're just saying, 0, let's use that number. Okay, cool. So that's all good. Let's just make this a little bit prettier. Let's see, might be too many things. No, that looks pretty good. So yeah, we take the namespace, we do this, everything's good. Now we can make this a little bit better. I want to actually add in here a static string called, I think we were using route before. And here we are going to return, sorry, we don't have to write the word return. We're going to return and take that namespace. So we're going to use the venue root screen.namespace. Is that what it, or where did we get that from? Sorry, venue routes.namespace. Need to import it. Venue routes.namespace. And then we're going to put in the word ID like this. So then we can actually, instead of having the logic here, we can actually just use venue detail screen dot route. Now, something that is kind of a bonus feature that I also like to do is, and this might be a little confusing if this doesn't make sense to you, that's fine, and it'll make sense probably in the future. But we're going to also optionally allow a ID to be passed in here. We'll use an integer of ID, but it's going to be optional and it's going to be nullable. And then what we're going to do here is, based on whether that is null or not, we will kind of perform this differently. So we can go, if ID does not equal null, then we'll actually put the ID right here. If not, we'll fall back to this sort of thing here. Now this is giving this nice little thing to use the operator. Yeah, we'll accept that. So it's going to use actually the number here. Or if that is not provided, it's going to just do the string like we have here. So here we're not providing a number, everything's good, it's going to do it like that. However, when we're navigating to this, this will allow us to essentially pass in an ID like 4, and it will build the URL itself. So this is a fun little thing that I have done on projects before, and it just makes the UX better. And I'll show you how we would actually do it. So now on our list screen, venue list screen, do we have that? Or it's venue root screen right now. Oh, sorry, the venue list component. What we can do is, in the list tile, we can add an on-tap event. And here we would do venue, context.push. And here we would use our venue detail screen.route and actually pass in the venue.id. So it's going to automatically build that URL for us as we like it, without us thinking about making it on the fly. So now we only have a reference to it in one spot, and it's being used both for our router to actually design, the route patterns, but also for navigating to by passing this in. So we can try this. This will not quite work yet, but let's just see if we can actually get somewhere. So I'll do my cool bar, I get hello back. So we are navigating there. And if we saw this, if I load this in Chrome, you'll actually see the URL changing to be /3/4, whatever the case. But in order to actually make this work, now we actually want to do something on our detail screen. And the way I like to do this is we will take something called venue. Actually, we'll call it data. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ref.watch. And of course, we need to convert this to a consumer widget now. So we can just do consumer widget and get access to our widget ref right here. And we can do ref.watch, and we're going to watch our venue detail provider. Now, what's cool about our venue detail provider, if we actually look at it, is we passed a second parameter here. We wouldn't have to do this, and we could still make a feature provider without that. But as soon as you add a second parameter, it actually now becomes a family, meaning it's actually going to have multiple instances of this provider for each unique ID that we pass in. And to talk to that, what we do is we actually just pass in that ID right here. So notice it's an integer, it's all going to work. Now data itself, this isn't the venue, this is actually an async value. And what we can do in our body, for instance, is we can go data.when and actually go through the different cases. So our data can be in 3 cases. It could be loading, it could have an error, or we could actually have the data itself. Let's start with loading, it's the simplest. So for this, we'll just return a circular progress indicator, and let's wrap it in a center. Right there. When there's an error, it's the function itself actually has 2 parameters. It's the error itself, and it's a stack trace. So here we can return center, and we can just do a child of text, and we can take that error dot and convert it to a string, and then we can just show the error on the screen of what went wrong. All good. Now for data, there's only 1 parameter, and the parameter itself is actually going to be the venue, so we can call it venue. You'll see right here, it is a venue. However, it could be null, so we want to check first of all if venue equals null. Then we might just return a center child text of not found, and we can make it venue not found. Cool. Otherwise, here we'll actually return some stuff about it. So let's just for now just put maybe some text that says, what do we have? A venue dot. I don't think we did a bio. Let's do venue dot website URL. Sure. And just to keep this looking really pretty, we'll wrap it in the center. Okay, so let's save that. Let's go like this. Just do a full refresh. We'll go to our Explore tab. We'll click on one of these, and we'll actually see that URL that came through. And this one, oh, we made those the same. Let's you know what? Let's just use venue.name just so we know this is working. So we'll go Explore. So here we have my cool bar, and here we have my other bar. And what's cool is, and we can kind of mock this a bit better. Let's go to our venue service again. And in our retrieve, let's do what we did before, where we're going to actually await a future.delayed duration. And let's do seconds of 2 seconds. I'll just refresh again. So let's go explore. Let's click here, and you'll see it's spinning. So that's because it's in this network retrieve thing. We're mocking it, but it's still happening. And then we get it. When we click on the second one, the same thing should happen. It's going, it's getting it, it got it. Now if I click back, oh, it is actually getting it. And that's because we have this set up so that it is a auto disposing provider. So as soon as nothing's listening to it, it actually goes away. And that's probably fine. I do want to show the difference, though, something we can do that's kind of cool. I don't know if we'll do it here or not, but if we actually use uppercase Serverpod and do keep alive true, we may have to rerun our generators and stuff. Let's just see. So let's go back to Explore. We'll get our spinny thing, and then we'll go back. When we come back, it's still in memory. And that's kind of cool. It's kept there. It's kind of cached until we actually purposely invalidate it, which is something we'll get to at some point when we want to do it. I think for now, though, we're gonna let it uncache itself basically when it's not being listened to. And if we notice that's a big performance issue and we're having problems, then we'll come back to that and maybe put this in and deal with our manual invalidation. But here we go. So what's cool with this, and I guess what is probably worth showing is running this in Chrome. So let's try that real quick. We'll just build it up on Chrome. Because I want to see the URL is actually, changing. Because again, this will be a web app as well as an iOS and Android app. And web apps especially, but even with native, when you want to deal with deep linking, it's really important that especially a public-facing app like this that's not going to require login for certain actions, we need people to be able to share a particular page and bring them right to it, which is why the detail page itself cannot have the venue, the full venue pass through. It can only be something very small, like the ID of it. So now if we go here to my cool bar, oh, we're seeing, okay, so something's up here. It could just be the path provider thing. That's interesting. Let me, we might have not configured our router correctly. Let's just see if I can go /venues/1 here, if it brings me there. Venue not found. Okay, we'll come back to that because I think this is a good time to wrap the video. There's something I think we still have to do with our router to make it, you know, work properly. But the idea is we're going to allow if someone comes to a particular, you know, URL, that we just get the data right there and give it to them and everyone's happy. So if something's wrong, we'll fix it. In fact, it could be, you know what it could be actually? Let's see if we can fix it real quick. I think our, where's our list screen or our list? Venue list. Should I be doing .go? Might be that. We'll try this real quick and then we'll call it a day on this. Venues. Okay, then we actually get the URL. Okay, so I get /3 my cool bar. Yay! So yeah, we are at that's what I did wrong. It's .go, not push. I actually did a little research on that because that doesn't really make sense to me. And then there's some stuff we still have to do to make sure the right tab gets selected. But I think in theory, if I type /3 here, yeah, it's going to bring me to it, and everything's good. So we're brought there without needing to be pushed, you know, from another screen, and the data can solve itself. And that's the intention there, and that's what we want because we want people to be able to do that. You know, they might just click a link on their Instagram or Facebook or whatever, being brought to a venue or a post or an event, and we want them not to have to go through the whole flow of finding it on their own. That would be silly. Let's get rid of our retrieve delay and call it a day. Okay, that wraps up today's this video. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, all the things I said at the start of the video, and I hope you're having a great day, and we'll catch you in the next one.